You know how we often hear that multiple orgasms are something, well, primarily in the female domain.
Hmm.
Well, get this. What if I told you that the potential for experiencing successive orgasms was actually something men also possess?
That's the fascinating territory we're exploring today. We're taking a deep dive into the concept of multiple male orgasms,
Right?
and we're drawing from a guide penned by B. Matt back in 2003. Now, this isn't about that brief window where, an erection might return after ejaculation.
Exactly. No, this guide sets out to reveal, as BMAT puts it, a wonderful world of personal and shared sexual bliss.
Hmm.
The idea is about moving through multiple orgasmic experiences without that significant drop in arousal that, typically follows a single climax.
And what's really interesting is that this isn't some novel idea that just popped up recently.
Oh.
The guide points out that ancient Taoist practices, like thousands of years ago, they incorporated an understanding of these principles.
Wow.
Yeah. And even Western researchers in the mid-20th century were exploring this potential. Yet for many today, it still feels like a well-kept sexual secret.
It does.
It suggests a historical understanding of male sexuality that, well, in many ways, modern society seems to have overlooked, maybe.
So for you, the listener, this deep dive offers the chance to maybe tap into a potentially unexplored dimension of your own sexuality. Could lead to greater awareness and, who knows, maybe even enhanced pleasure.
Right.
Our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to unpack the core ideas from BMAT's guide. We'll define exactly what multiple male orgasms are in this context, delve into the underlying mechanisms that make them possible, and walk through the techniques that are suggested to help you explore this.
That's good.
Okay, let's unpack this right away then.
Yeah.
When we talk about multiple male orgasms here, what's the key understanding we need to have, like right off the bat?
Okay, the crucial thing to understand from the get-go is that we're primarily talking about experiencing orgasm without ejaculation.
Without ejaculation,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, although a final ejaculation might certainly happen at the end, the guide is very direct in addressing a common misconception.
Which is?
Well, a lot of men might think that if they can, regain an erection relatively quickly after ejaculating and have another climax,
Yeah.
that qualifies as being multi-orgasmic.
But that's not really what this guide is focusing on, is it? It makes a clear distinction.
Absolutely. The defining characteristic we're looking at here is a sequence of orgasmic sensations without that complete dip in sexual arousal that usually follows ejaculation.
Right.
Imagine it more like a continuous wave of pleasure, where one peak flows into the next without a significant, trough in between.
Okay, so if that post-orgasmic dip is often linked to ejaculation, how can someone experience multiple orgasms without it? This is where it's really intriguing.
It truly does, yeah. The guide introduces a foundational idea that orgasm and ejaculation are actually distinct physiological processes. While they typically happen, in close succession for men, the potential exists to learn how to experience them separately.
Separately? How does that work, like physiologically?
Well, the guide explains that ejaculation is the primary trigger for what's known as the refractory period.
Okay, right, that downtime.
Exactly, that time after ejaculation where further sexual stimulation doesn't easily lead to arousal or orgasm for most men. Now, because women's orgasmic experience doesn't typically involve ejaculation in the same way, they often don't experience the same refractory period, which is a key factor in their, generally acknowledged capacity for multiple orgasms. This kind of offers a broader insight into how societal views on sexual pleasure might be influenced by these differing physiological responses, maybe.
That makes a lot of sense. So the key seems to be untangling orgasm from ejaculation. And the guide points to a specific muscle that plays a big role in this, right?
It does.
It's even called the sexual miracle muscle.
Exactly. Matt refers to the pubococcygeal muscle, often just called the PC muscle or the pelvic floor muscle.
Right, the PC muscle.
Yeah.
Heard of it.
Yeah. That's presented as the key to this separation. What's fascinating here is that this muscle isn't just about sexual function. It also plays a really important role in things like urinary control.
Okay. So for you, the listener, who's now learning about this crucial muscle, how can you actually get a feel for where it is, what it does within your own body?
The guide offers a very practical way to identify it. Next time you're urinating, try to stop the flow midstream. The
Okay.
muscle you engage to do that feeling, that's your PC muscle.
Ah, right.
And if you find it difficult to stop the flow, the guide suggests that might indicate, well, a weaker PC muscle that could benefit from strengthening exercises.
And strengthening this muscle is presented as a vital step towards unlocking this potential for multiple orgasms, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, the guide really emphasizes the importance of regular exercise to build strength and control in the PC muscle. It's also really important to understand the correct action. You want to focus on contracting it. Think of a sensation of squeezing and gently drawing upwards within your pelvis.
Okay, upwards.
Yeah, rather than relaxing or pushing down, which is the action you'd use, say, during a bowel movement. That's different.
Got it. The guide even includes a diagram, I think, to help visualize the muscles involved, though it's important to note it depicts female anatomy.
That's right. Now, while the diagram shows the vulva, the PC muscle itself and the other non-genital muscles illustrated are essentially the same in men.
Cool.
The key is to understand that the function and location of the PC muscle down there in the pelvic floor are consistent across sexes. You just need to mentally adapt the image, visualizing a penis in place of the vulva, to understand how this muscle relates to your own anatomy.
Okay, so you've now hopefully identified your PC muscle, maybe felt it work. What's the next step in exploring this, according to the guide?
Well, the guide advises starting with some solo exploration through masturbation. The idea here is to become very familiar with your own body sensations and specifically the feeling of your PC muscle contracting during arousal.
And there's a specific exercise that the guide suggests as a starting point, right? Kind of a practice run?
Yes, the guide recommends masturbating in your usual way, but as you approach that feeling of the point of no return,
And then edge.
yeah, that sensation where ejaculation feels imminent,
Yeah.
you intentionally stop stimulation. Just stop.
Okay.
At that moment, you actively contract or squeeze your PC muscle, hold it for a count of 10, then relax and take a break for about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
And you repeat this process, gradually bringing yourself closer to that point of no return with each attempt, all while paying close attention to your level of arousal and the physical sensations you're experiencing, like really tuning in.
So that initial phase of self-stimulation, as the guide playfully calls it, jacking off, is really about preparation and getting to know your body's signals. Then comes what the guide refers to as the million-dollar moment.
Yeah.
Can you describe what that entails? What's supposed to happen?
This is where the crucial technique during orgasm comes into play. As you start to feel the initial sensations of orgasm, those first contractions at the base of your penis,
Yeah.
the guide instructs you to immediately stop all stimulation and, at the same time, consciously squeeze your PC muscle as firmly as you can and maintain that contraction.
Whoa, okay. So right as it starts, stop stimulating A and D, squeeze hard.
Precisely. It might feel almost counterintuitive, like hitting the brakes right when you're about to climax.
It does sound a bit like trying to stop a sneeze midway.
That's actually a great analogy.
Yeah.
But that precise interruption and contraction is presented as the key to inhibiting ejaculation.
Okay.
The guide suggests that if you're successful in contracting your PC muscle effectively and at the right moment, ideally, just as those orgasmic contractions begin, or perhaps even slightly before, but definitely during the build-up to orgasm, you should be able to suppress that full, forceful ejaculation.
And if that happens, what's the result? What does it feel like?
Well, if you manage to suppress the ejaculation, you might notice some minor semen leakage, but it won't be the full release of a typical singular orgasm.
Okay.
More importantly, successfully inhibiting ejaculation in this way also seems to bypass the usual refractory period.
Ah, so no downtime.
Exactly. You should find that your level of arousal remains relatively high, allowing you to resume stimulation fairly quickly and potentially experience further orgasms.
The guide even mentions that for that first successful experience of a non-ejaculatory orgasm, it might be okay to then allow yourself to ejaculate afterwards,
Right.
like on the second or third one.
That's right. It acknowledges that learning this takes time and, consistent practice.
Right.
If you weren't able to prevent ejaculation on your initial attempts, the guide suggests it could be due to the PC muscle not being strong enough yet,
Yeah.
or perhaps the timing of the squeeze wasn't quite right. It emphasizes that mastering that precise timing is a significant part of the learning curve. It takes practice.
So besides just repeated practice, which sounds key, are there any other specific techniques that the guide recommends to increase the likelihood of success?
Absolutely. The guide strongly encourages open and honest communication with a romantic partner, if you have one, about your exploration of this.
Makes sense.
Sharing your experiences can not only enhance pleasure for both of you, but also provide valuable feedback and support. It can become a shared journey.
And there's a more detailed multi-step technique outlined for when someone is ready to make like a concerted first attempt, isn't there? A more structured approach.
Yes, this is a more comprehensive approach that BMAT outlines, drawing on various sources. It starts with ensuring you have ample, uninterrupted time and privacy
So true.
in a comfortable and relaxed environment. The guide emphasizes the importance of deep relaxation beforehand, suggesting maybe mild exercise and deep breathing,
Okay.
and even visualizing the flow of sexual energy within the body,
Yeah.
getting centered. The next step involves engaging with stimulating materials, whether visual, auditory, or through mental imagery, to become thoroughly aroused.
Right. Get things going.
Yeah. Now, this is a key point. Before starting direct genital stimulation, the guide suggests gently stroking other erogenous zones on your body.
Ah, okay. Build the sensuality.
Exactly. Heighten overall sensuality.
Yeah.
Only after this preliminary arousal do you begin masturbation, building the intensity up to that point just before the point of no return, and then taking a brief pause, similar to the initial exploratory exercise.
Okay. Edge close, then pause.
Right. Finally, on the subsequent attempt to reach climax, you actively employ that PC muscle technique, stop stimulation, squeeze hard to inhibit ejaculation during the orgasmic sensations.
Love it.
And the guide also stresses the importance of feeling free to experiment and adapt these techniques to what feels best for you, especially if you're exploring this with a partner. And again, emphasizes the crucial role of open communication. Talk about it.
The guide also makes a brief mention of Kegel exercises, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As a way to strengthen the PC muscle, although it doesn't go into great detail itself.
Yes, that's right. It actually directs listeners to the Sex Project website for more in-depth information on Kegel exercises.
Right.
These are essentially specific exercises designed to target and strengthen the pelvic floor muscles, which can certainly contribute to better control of the PC muscle over time.
Now, like with learning any new skill, especially something this intricate, there are often hurdles and challenges along the way. What are some of the common problems that the guide addresses, things people run into?
Yeah, good point. The most frequently reported challenge is simply not being able to contract the PC muscle effectively enough during the intensity of orgasm to actually prevent ejaculation.
Right. It's probably hard to focus then.
Exactly. The guide's advice is to consciously keep squeezing. Even if you start to feel those initial ejaculatory contractions, don't give up on the squeeze. Another common difficulty is learning to distinguish between the different phases of arousal, that plateau phase, the onset of orgasm itself, and the point of ejaculation. They can feel very close together. To improve this awareness, the guide suggests practicing slower, more mindful self-stimulation. Really pay attention, become more attuned to your body's subtle signals and boundaries.
That makes sense. Slowing down to learn. It's interesting that the guide also briefly touches on potential benefits for men who experience premature ejaculation.
It is, yeah. Learning to consciously control the PC muscle and, importantly, to separate the sensations of orgasm from the inevitability of ejaculation, that can be incredibly beneficial.
How so?
Well, it can offer them a greater sense of control, potentially prolong sexual encounters, and maybe allow them to focus more on their partner's pleasure without the anxiety of climaxing too quickly.
That could be significant for some people.
Meh.
What about age? Does a man's age significantly impact his potential to achieve multiple orgasms, according to the guide?
The guide suggests that, generally speaking, sexually mature men of all ages should have a similar underlying potential for success.
Okay.
Provided, of course, they are sexually active and have a good understanding of their own sexual responses. It's more about awareness and practice than age itself.
However, the guide does include some important cautionary notes and advice, doesn't it? Some caveats.
Absolutely, and these are important. It points out that if someone is currently experiencing difficulties in even achieving a single orgasm, or maybe if they have a general discomfort or lack of openness around sexual topics,
Yeah.
those underlying issues might need to be addressed first. Foundational stuff.
Right.
For more significant concerns or persistent difficulties, the guide wisely recommends seeking advice from healthcare providers or qualified therapists. Don't just push through if something feels really off.
Good advice. And there's a particularly crucial health warning that the guide includes, too.
Yes, this is extremely important. Cannot stress this enough. The guide strongly advises paying close attention to the appearance and smell of your ejaculate. Okay. Any noticeable changes in color or an unusual odor could potentially be a sign of an infection and should prompt an immediate consultation with a healthcare professional. Don't ignore that.
Right. And pain.
Exactly. Similarly, while you might experience some mild, unfamiliar sensations when first identifying and working with your PC muscle, any actual pain during these exercises is a clear warning sign. Stop immediately and seek medical advice.
So bottom line, nothing should hurt.
Absolutely. The overarching principle is that this exploration should never be physically or mentally painful. Listen to your body.
Finally, the guide offers some encouraging words about the learning process itself, doesn't it?
Exactly. It advises against getting discouraged or trying too hard, like forcing it.
Yeah.
Developing the ability to experience multiple orgasms isn't simply about willpower. It requires a degree of patience with yourself, both physical and mental preparation, and crucially, a willingness to take a step back and refocus if things aren't progressing as you expect. It's a process.
The guide also includes a brief section featuring notable sex and orgasm quotes.
Yeah.
What do you think was the intention behind including these? Just curious.
That's interesting, I think. Well, what's insightful here is how these quotes provide a broader, almost philosophical context to the very personal experience of orgasm and sexuality. They touch on the profound and often indescribable nature of these experiences, their connection to other fundamental aspects of life like love and creativity, and even offer a touch of historical perspective on societal views.
So less technical, more context.
Exactly. It enriches the discussion beyond just the mechanics of achieving multiple orgasms, gives it some depth.
And finally, B. Matt, the author of the guide, shares his own personal experience and offers a concluding message. What are the key takeaways from his perspective?
Well, he conveys a strong sense of conviction in the information he's presented, based largely on his own personal journey of achieving multiple orgasms using these techniques.
Okay, so he's done it himself.
Yeah, that's the impression. He also mentions having received positive feedback from other men who have explored this based on his guide, so some anecdotal support.
Right.
The core message is that the ability to have multiple orgasms is a real potential for men, but realizing that potential depends on factors like developing sexual self-awareness, strengthening that PC muscle, and other factors we've discussed. It's not necessarily an overnight achievement and likely requires dedicated time, effort, and determination.
And his final piece of advice.
It's simple but vital.
Yeah.
Have fun and enjoy yourself. Don't let it become a chore.
Good advice for anything, really.
Ah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into B. Matt's guide, what are the core insights that you, the listeners, should really take away from all this?
I think the central understanding is that multiple male orgasms are indeed a tangible possibility. It's not just myth.
Okay.
And it's achieved primarily through learning to consciously separate the sensations of orgasm from the process of ejaculation.
Right, that decoupling.
Exactly. And the PC muscle plays a pivotal role in gaining this control. But achieving this requires consistent practice, developing a more profound awareness of your own body's sexual responses, and cultivating a good measure of patience with the learning process.
Patience and practice.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, here's a final thought for you to consider. Now that you're aware this potential exists, maybe you weren't before, what does this information spark in you regarding the unexplored aspects of your own sexuality? And what possibilities might it suggest for forging deeper, perhaps more fulfilling sexual connections? Something to think about.